I'm going to farm some milestone points in multiplayer 1. It's Ghost at the moment. I'm ranting to myself. I've been ranting for the last, 6 hours? Because I spent 2 minutes on the phone to my dad earlier. So I think I should do part 2 of The Tale of Too Many Perspectives. And I think this part should be called It Happens to Everyone. So after I published the first part, I actually wanted my dad to listen to it because they don't listen to stories about my life. And you should listen to part 1 of A Tale of Too Many Perspectives if you're going to listen to my story on this video. But where to begin? So my dad and my mum love saying, "Oh, don't worry, it happens to everyone." And that stuff about being beaten by my headmaster, whether it's, to be honest, I have to say, I don't even know that it happened. Like I'm pretty certain it happened, but my memory at that age is difficult to understand. I know I know before and after being beaten more than actually being beaten. I don't really remember getting beaten many times, but I remember before and after it. I don't actually remember the beatings. Just remember the result of them and the energy leading up to them. But lots of things I get told happen to everyone. One being my dad not recognising me once. So once I walked up to my father and said, "Hi Dad," and he goes, "Sorry, do I know you?" And he tells me that happens to everyone. So I was like, I was 20 years old, and he worked in Hong Kong at the time, but he was in London for a bit, and he was working for Enron, and the Enron office was in Victoria at that time. And I thought I'd go see him. So I went up to the office. It's by Buckingham Palace. And I go into the office. Beautiful office. Everything's glass in there. So you can see through the lifts and the floors and the walls. And not the floors of the lifts. You can see from the lobby through to each floor. And so I go up to the reception and I give them my name and say I want to see my father. And I give them his full name and my full name. And they page him to come down. And I see him coming down the lift. So I go up to the lift to greet him, and he knows he's coming to see me. He's been paged to see me, and I walk up to him, go, "Hi, Dad," and he goes, "Sorry, do I know you?" And I just I was just completely struck. Like I didn't, and even when I start trying to explain to him that I'm his son, his face is completely blank. It's taking him like 30 seconds to 2 minutes to actually trigger in his brain that I'm one of his children. And he doesn't have like 400 children. He's got 3 of us. I know that because he had a vasectomy before I was born, like after I was conceived, before I was born. Because that also happens to everyone when their parents have children, they decide before you're born that they've already had enough and they're going to have a vasectomy now because they definitely don't want any more. What else What else happens to everybody? So I was about 6 years old, and I had to be taken to school and home by taxis because obviously my parents are too busy to take you to school. And I think a taxi's meant to be due at about 3 p.m. to take me home, and no taxi comes, and I'm just waiting outside the school for a taxi. Nothing's coming. I'm left on my own on the driveway, and a couple of hours later, one of the teachers is like, "What's going on?" And I'm like, "No one's come to pick me up." And they just sit me down in the front lobby of the school, and they call. I don't know whether they called my parents or a taxi company, but they called someone, and then another taxi was meant to come for me, and another taxi came, and then took my brother home, and didn't know it had to come and get me because there was meant to be a taxi later for my brother. So the second one came. Well, sorry, the only one that came later, meaning to pick me up, and then just took my brother home. And I'm still left there, and then more hours pass, and I think they couldn't contact anyone. And then eventually, about 7 p.m, one of the teachers, Mrs. Priday, who lived near my house, decided to drive me home. And she drives me home, waits outside the house as I walk to the front door. And I walk to the front door, knock on the front door, and they didn't even know. Like my father was in another country, and my mother didn't even know that I wasn't in the house. They had had dinner and moved on and not even realised that their 6-year-old son was still at school. But of course, That happens to everyone. This mantra of, oh, don't worry, it happens to everyone, just made me think. I just genuinely believed all these things really did happen to everyone. Everyone gets punched. Everyone gets forgotten by their parents, you know? Oh. There's a Nislopi song called the JCB song, and he goes like, I'm Luke, I'm 5, and my dad's Bruce Lee. It was like, when I was 5, my dad was God, you know, like to all men, all kids have a dad, although more dads disappear than mums because you can get away before the kid's born, so fewer kids have present dads than present mums, but ultimately every person on the planet has a mum and a dad at some point, maybe not when they're actually born. Where am I getting to? I'm trying to drive now. So I've been left behind. 1 second back. Oh, I shouldn't have done that. Yeah, this Nislopi song. So when you grow up, your dad's the man in your life and he's bigger than you. So all dads are gods. We grow up just seeing this man and he's a god to us because he's so big and can do everything and knows so much. And but my And when I first heard that Nislopi song years and years and years ago, I thought it was a nice song about someone that had a good relationship with his dad, and it seemed that way for many years. But when I listened to it recently, it makes me think about your perception of your father when you're young as being of this God, and you go and eventually at some point in your life you realize he's just a man and he has all these flaws, and actually and most of the time, because we're men, they're a prick. All I want to say to my father at the moment is, if I happen to meet you again, it'll only be because I paid for a flight to come and punch you in the face. Or if he dies, I just want to urinate on his grave. It's like, I don't know. He's got COVID now, I don't care. It's his own fault for having a dirty wife. They gave it to him, like. And he's so old, he's like 80, nearly, like, he's between 70 and 80. What, born 1948, I think. And that's gonna crash. That wasn't right. Yuda was unlucky too. Yeah, but he doesn't even know that you can, like, put a bit of honey in your mouth to soothe a sore throat. He's sitting there coughing every 3 seconds, thinking he's got to clear the phlegm out his throat, but he's just agitating his throat. And he got COVID the same time as his wife. Him and his wife were in Bali, and they both contracted COVID, having gone to Bali from Cyprus to go there for winter, and then they got COVID, and my dad can't go back to Cyprus to go to work. But his wife has gone back to Cyprus without him because she needs to go back to validate her residency application in a country she doesn't even want to go to. It's like, I want to go and live in Cyprus. I want to be a resident in Cyprus. I want a Cypriot passport because I believe I'm born Cypriot. My family is Cypriot. And now my father, with his whore wife that's younger than me, has he's already got her residency in Hong Kong, and now all he's doing is getting her residency in Cyprus. And the way he's getting her she's living in his flat, but his flat is something that I helped him buy. I helped him buy it because he said it would be something for him to actually meet us, his family in Europe. And now I help him buy a flat, and then he just moves his wife in there. And now he's going to die, and then she's just going to be left in Cyprus in the flat that I own. Oh, I only own part of it while he's alive. Anyway, she's not, when he dies, if my father dies, that flat's meant to be mine and my brothers and sisters. I already own part of it. it's meant to go into full ownership between us three, but because his wife's there under Cypriot law, she'll get like the majority of it. She knows that. Whatever he writes in a will, I won't be able to get her out the flat. And the fact that she's there without him now, it's like she's always in Bali when he's in Cyprus, and she's in Cyprus when he's in Bali now. She just avoids him because she's just waiting for him to die. His second wife was a Filipino, and he married her. He had to divorce my mum and marry her. I should have taken that barrel, sorry, I was just thinking how to say this. But my father divorced my mother to marry the Filipino that he'd met. I think she was the maid that he got in Hong Kong when he was an expat banker there. And so it was 11 years she overlapped with my mother. And I knew for most of that because he left evidence lying around all the place. I'd like go and visit him. I'd say, Dad, can I have some money when I was like 12 in Hong Kong? And he'd go, yeah, go open my wallet. And I'd open his wallet and there was just a picture of him and his girlfriend in the window slot. And it was like, why did you tell me to open your wallet? I'm like 12 years old and you've just shown me that my dad's having an affair. And then for the next 6 years, I'm struggling to make my mother work it out or realise that her husband's cheating on her. And then eventually he tells her, and he tells her because he needs a divorce. He needs a divorce because his mistress now needs a visa in Hong Kong because she can't stay any longer. So, all right, quickly divorce my mum, quickly marry her. And because my dad needed to get divorced really fast because he needed to get the visa really fast, or Emma would have been kicked out the country. He just gave my mum everything in the divorce. That was the best thing that happened financially in our family, because my dad's so bad with money. The moment, like a few years later, he lost everything because he was with Enron and Lehman Brothers. So when he got divorced from my mother and married this Filipino woman, the fact that he offloaded all his possessions, he did that thinking he was so rich he was going to make more. But the things that he did keep, he lost. And then he was with that woman 11 years, and about 8 of them overlapped with the Indonesian farmer girl that he bought online. And then he had to divorce the Filipino when the Indonesian needed a visa. And then when her visa application to England kept failing, he invited all of us to Indonesia to witness a second wedding of her so that he could later ask us to email thank you letters to her, say thank you for letting us come to your wedding, it was a lot of fun, so that they could attach them in visa applications to make it look like the wedding wasn't a complete farce just for visas. But none of that worked because she's been in prison for immigration fraud in Hong Kong, and that was why the visa was getting rejected every time. Anyway, I thought I was on the short track, like, that was just about to finish. I thought, how much am I saying? I was like, but my dad will never listen to this, and she's never going to listen to this. She wouldn't understand the words. It's like the thing I'm most ashamed about in her marrying this woman is how dumb she is, because I don't care about the age. It's quite cool if you're 80 and you marry a 30-year-old, but it's how dumb she is. And it's how little she knows about her own country. So it's like, and it's like just what, like occasionally just like learns, like, there's so much to learn about Indonesia. And a lot of the people, well, I don't want to say a lot of people there, I know nothing about that, but, she was a Hooters girl. And then she worries about call to prayer at 6 p.m. Hooters, call to prayer. It doesn't fit with me, I'm sorry. Online whore that my dad bought, and then, I've got to wear my headscarf and go pray at 6 p.m. Don't get it. She's my Pagani. So, but part 2 of this was basically saying about your perception of your father changes. And I think all men start off in this world thinking of their fathers as gods, and then we slowly want to kill them, I think. Because they remind us of ourselves. As we get older, we turn into them. And I'm seeing my father and I'm like, I don't want to become him, but I look like him. And part of my brain behaves like him. And I'm like, oh no, what do I do? Oh, awkward traffic. Got bounced. I wonder if my Bugatti's got fuel. So this is, I'm really just remembering this is ghost mode. It's going to be quite hard in the Pagani at the top end. Oh, thank you for fifth. Yeah, lost 20 points for that. I was in the lead. Why did I pick the Pagani? Let's go back. See what S-Class I've got. I've got fuel in my Bugatti. Let's use that up. As well as this mantra of it happens to everyone, I'm just full of false information from my father. He always says stuff so confidently. If you ask him a question, he always thinks he knows the answer, but he's nearly always wrong. And that's really annoying because I trusted him so much as a child. It was like I remember being in the back seat of the car, very young, and driving past a parked car, and it had something in the window that said like £2,000 ONO. And I went, oh, what does ONO mean when they're selling a car? And my dad said, over, not under. And I was like, but that's not ONO, that would be ONU. And he's like, oh yeah, but it doesn't always have to use the letters of what it means. And then for the next like several years of my life, I actually don't think, I'm driving so badly, sorry, I don't think abbreviations need to use the correct letters because my dad's informed me of this, when it just means or near offer. It means something, but he was trying to be a smart-ass with me when I was a little child. And an autistic child at that doesn't really understand these little subtle sarcasms and stuff. Utter prick. They screwed with me all the time, just laughing. And it's how we were brought up in our generation, is to laugh at people that make mistakes, or laugh at people that have a problem. Or like in this game, laugh at people that lose, you know. It's like football, like... I think my Vanda might be back in. I didn't check how long it. Yeah, it was only a couple of minutes. Yeah, the Vanda will get me back up the rankings. The Bugatti's a bit heavy sometimes for some tracks in ghost mode. It's nice KDing people with Bugatti, just flying through at top speed when people are on straights and KDing them. My dad's borrowed money from nearly everyone in my family and never paid them back. The only thing that I've got going for me is that he's paid some of the money back that he's borrowed off me. That's the only win I've ever had. It must be more than a decade since I've had a birthday card. And it must be more than 3 decades since I had a birthday present or a Christmas present. And he's got nothing to pass down in terms of not a watch, a ring, lost his wedding ring, not got anything that he cares about, hasn't got a single possession that he cares about. Hello, crying man. It's alright, Job, it'll be okay. Your Yesco will refuel eventually. But not as quick as my Vanda. So many people I went to school with had such impressive fathers, and at my primary school there were all these events all the time, like father's football match and like the athletics day, and people would do 3-legged races with their father or something, and it was like, whose fathers? Billy Ocean was one of the fathers of someone at my school. Nick Faldo was a father of someone at an associated school, so would turn up at random matches. Like, there was a famous cricketer, there was the manager of Intercontinental Hotels, there was the boss of NatWest. You know, people were successful and talented and smart, and they all had time to come and like see what their children were up to. Like, I get some people moan, oh, like my thing didn't come to a recital, or my thing didn't come to a special game or something. I'd never have expected my parents to come to anything I did. And by the time I was 13, I was too terrified for anyone to see me do anything I did. I remember, like, at 12, I think the thing that stopped me wanting to perform in public at school was when I did a clarinet recital at 12 and the room was so cold, my clarinet was flat or something. And I couldn't tune it because there's only so far you can tune a clarinet. It requires a room temperature of such a thing, and I was playing Maria from West Side Story. And couldn't get the tuning right, and then for 5 minutes I'm tuning my clarinet in front of 500 people in an audience with a whole orchestra behind me waiting as well, while I just stand there tuning. Oh, it's haunting memory, that. I didn't like playing instruments in public or reciting in public, but I'm very good at doing speeches about stuff like that I know about, so I can stand up in front of a podium and do a lecture about anything, no problem. I can wing one without a script, no problem. But I don't like, I could never play an instrument in public for some reason, because it's deeper into your soul. I shared myself randomly strumming on guitar on here once. Last night I did something on the guitar that really entertained me. It would have been nice had people heard it. All this false information I got from my parents, and then sort of, I don't know if it was ridicule at school, I don't know how to combine it, but I had all this false information from my parents, so I wanted to listen to the people at my school for advice, you know, listen to your peers. And the bit of advice I had got, they're all so far ahead, they must all be in really top speed cars. Ghost mode sucks, it's so boring. Let's turn touch drive off. Oh, I didn't know that happens. $20-point loss for that. That sucks. What was I saying? Because I was just getting on to another point. Yeah, everyone's fathers were so impressive, and I was proud of mine. When he went to Hong Kong, and then I went to Hong Kong in my school holidays and went back to school. No one believed I'd been there because it was such an exotic place in like 1993. For me to have spent a month there at 12, they just didn't believe I'd been there, or that my dad was that cool that he had a job in Hong Kong, and it was cool. But when he married the Filipino maid, not so cool. When he moved to America, he furnished his. Oh, sorry, when he was in Discovery Bay. So, in one of the final years he was in Hong Kong, he moved to Discovery Bay and got his own apartment rather than living in the Lehman Brothers apartment. And he bought his own furniture, and I went to stay with him, and it was just so peculiar what furniture he bought, because I've said I'm like, I share genes with my dad. He's my dad. I share chemistry, and it's like I wouldn't pick any of this stuff. It's really strange, and I know you wouldn't pick it. It didn't make any sense for years until I worked out that it was his second wife that picked it all, the Filipino maid. I shouldn't have gone right there. It was lagging. When they spin, you can gain a tiny bit by not spinning, but you lose on the shockwave there. There we go. Yeah, so to go back to the other point, all that false information I'd been given by my father led me to not trust things my parents said, and then people at school would be like, you don't want to be a mummy's boy, don't trust your mummy. So there was like, I think I was 12 years old again, and I had to go to school a week early to do a rugby training course. So we would go and play rugby for a week before the winter term started, so we were ready for the proper games against other schools. And because it's not school time, it's the holidays, I didn't want to wear my school games kit, because that would be like being a nerd wearing your school games kit during the holiday period. And so I wanted to wear my own clothes, what I felt happy in. And my mother was telling me not to wear them. She was telling me to wear my games kit. So that made me think, no, I should wear it less, because everyone told me don't listen to your mother, because then everyone will laugh at me if I turn up in my games kit having listened to my mother. So I wear what I want. And this was like, again, 1993 or 4. Ah, why am I going the wrong way? It's all right. And so I'm wearing like a multicoloured t-shirt in proper 80s glory with some bright green shorts on. I know there's a photo of myself on holiday in France, probably tiny bit younger, sitting in Mont Saint Michel, and I know I was happy then, and I was happy in those clothes. And nowadays you'd be able to wear that and not be ridiculed. But I turned up at the school wearing this, got out the car, and everyone's waiting on the school drive, including the teacher for the rugby, and they all start laughing at me. There's complete hysterics. Everyone's on the floor laughing because they're all wearing their games kit. They're all wearing their official school games kit, and I've turned up in this brightly coloured monstrosity. And the teacher's laughing his head off with the boys, encouraging them to laugh even harder, and then just orders my mother to take me home and have me changed. And so I go home and then cut the clothes off myself with scissors. And I could never properly dress myself again for like 20 years. I struggled to feel comfortable in my clothes again. Like before a job interview, I'd be terrified about I know everyone's terrified before a job interview, but combine that experience of getting it wrong as to what to wear. I was terrified as to what to wear whenever going anywhere new, whenever going to anything. But don't worry, Adam. It happens to everyone. That was probably the most embarrassing moment in my life. It's amazing that lucky there weren't camera phones then, because people would have just filmed me turning up like that. There would have been like 50 people that had filmed that on their phone and published it on Facebook. But that stuff didn't exist in 1993, so we were safe to embarrass ourselves, and then everyone had forgotten a few weeks later. Except the person that had got embarrassed. Oh, I missed a shot. Doesn't matter, doesn't cost me anything. Would have been 5th anyway. My mum beat us. I'm not gaining ground. I need my centre back. Oh, I'm now out of fuel in my Vanda. Better go back to S-Class. Let's try the Bugatti again. Might be lucky with the track. Might not be. Finish the gas tank. Not lucky with the track for this car. Better get to shop. Oh, don't do that. Oh. Right, that's me done for the hour. Need to get some food. Good luck, guys. I'm madder than you.